did things that were just cost a lot of lives.
Was O.P. Smith
I guess he was there, you know.
right? Was O.P. Smith a part of that?
The what?
Did O.P. Smith play any involvement in Peleliu?
Yeah, under that, let's see, what is it, I don't know if it's, that one Bugle No Drums, or if it's the Marine book, Fuller book.
Okay.
I think it was Fuller's book, because he was primary there, because he said that the general that was over him, he said that that's when Smith was assistant commander.
Okay.
Assistant division commander.
Okay.
And he said, he told him, he said, like on something like day 4, he says, we took this part, he says, I want you to stay here and hold this. And he said, in spite of whoever tells you different, you stay here and hold what we have.
Okay.
And that was like Smith was there with that group. So he came over that group, and I think he figured, well, Smith's going to say, let's get out of here as fast as we can. That's my opinion of it, you know.
And did
sound because to give that order, you know, and I think that's Porter's pointing that out, you know. He says, his commander said, regardless of who tells you, you stay here.
and did Smith stay there?
Well, he stayed there, but I don't know what Smith did after that or how the outcome of the battle was.
Okay.
You know, but like I said, they took me out, I guess, you know, but
Okay.
I think Vallowe was the only one where they said out of the Amphibious landing where they were actually counterattacked on the landing.
On the landing, correct.
You know, most of them, they moved on there because different people came and they left them on there. And because they were dug in, you know, everybody was dug in and they were just going to wait their time, the Japanese, to start their offensives.
Okay. Let's go.
They said that when they left Nam up there, they said they had spots put out what they call needles. You know, they had on the map like put it down here, and that's where the artillery and everything was concentrated to hold that line.
Okay.
You know, as the enemy come up, and then they hit them and kept them back. That's how they analyze that, you know. They're getting a little more secure by Christmas Day, you know.
Okay. Let's get back to Almond. You know, you make the comment that MacArthur wasn't all that satisfied with a lot of the commanders coming out of World War II. Like he had some questions and kind of debated their abilities, so on and so forth. So I want to validate something about Almond. At the point at which O.P. Smith is over 9th Corps and Ridgway has now taken control and filled in Truman's spot after a short stint up there with Walker's 8th after Walker's death. He comes out and he mentions in his oral arguments, Ridgway does, in his oral arguments, his oral story, that given a choice between O.P. Smith and General Ned Almond, that he would take Ned Almond because he was a hard charger. Okay, so the question came to my mind, if Ned Almond was wearing a Marine Corps uniform and standing around Chesty Puller, would anybody have as much to say negatively about Almond?
I guess everybody, I don't know who was that one I'm thinking of that said, that was on the video, you know, the guy says, one of those big things says, one thing about Almond when he was, I think it was Ricks or something, said when he was aggressive, you know, when the battle was on, he was aggressive, and when the battle wasn't on, he was still aggressive.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of my question here. It seems to me that Chesty Puller and Ned Almond have a lot in common.
I think they would have probably hit it off.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if Ned Almond was wearing a Marine Corps uniform, how his history would have been written.
Yeah.
Okay? You know, it's America. In America, we don't like losers. we only like winners, right?
That's like old Patrick's quote.
Okay, so
America won't tolerate a loser.
Well, that's kind of where that came from, to be honest with you. All right, so we're looking at about anywhere from 25 to 28,000 Marines by the end of December involved in the Korean War. At the same time, when the 7th ID comes in and fills up the roster for 10th Corps, how many Army personnel are we talking about in the 7th ID, including 57 Field Artillery and all their conjunctive battalions and regiments?
Back in South Korea?
Yeah, starting in South Korea. Starting in South Korea and coming up to December 31st.
We had pretty well and got stabilized, I think, right before that. I think they had us up to about 22,000 somewhere along the line.
22,000.
South Koreans, as they were getting more forces in.
And this was at the Pusan perimeter.
I think when we got back, of course, you had all that loss of Chosin, but I think that's when they start getting rid of the South Koreans.
Right. How many?
Everything changed when Ridgeway came in.
Yeah, I understand, and that's. But I only want to speak.
From December 25th, when he went over there.
Right.
He stayed in there till MacArthur was released on April 11th.
Right.
And that's when Ridgeway had all that time in Korea then, from December on till April 11th.
Right.
Then he moved over to Tokyo and Van Fleet came in.
Right.
Okay. Van Fleet. Now he was from the 2nd Division, the Union Hit Division.
Okay, so in terms of Army personnel.
I said like Poor and his people were singing that bug out boogies that was aimed at the 2nd Division, when they had to pull out.
Yeah.
Up in North Korea?
Yeah.
And I said, one thing about it, I said, I'll bet you they never used that around Van Fleet.
Yeah, right? So let's go back to Walker's 8th Army. What's the number of personnel involved in the Walker 8th Army? After they crossed the 38th, what kind of numbers are we talking about?
I don't know. I know I had how many losses we had and everything when we were up in North Korea with the 8th Army.
Right.
I'm not sure what offhand on how many they had in recuperating.
Okay. All right. So let's move on. In the book Ebb and Flow by Billy Mossman, there's a map dated as 26 November 1950, and it shows the area of operations. This particular line here represents the separation between 7th ID and Rock on the east side. Then we come further west, and you have the operation line along the Changjiang River to the Pujan, representing the 7th ID separation from the Marines. So you have this little gap here for the Marines, and it runs from the town of Changjiang to the west side, all the way to Yudam-ni, all the way down, and goes all the way to the Fusion. Now there was some argument about the Marine Corps having to cover the west side of the Chosin Reservoir, correct?
Yeah.
O.P. Smith had a problem because he didn't know of any roads up that way. Wasn't that the argument?
Yeah, he said, he went to Allen, he said there's no roads leading around there.
Right.
And everybody's on foot. You're on foot. So, they're always criticizing the Army riding everywhere, and he says because the road that's leading there comes off of Oral Reef, comes in, and then that was in the center zone, and the center zone was assigned to the 7th Division.
Right.
See, that's what he said. That was on the edge, and he said, we can't find a road around it. And he says, we're going to let the Army do it.
Okay.
He said, eventually, he got another concession from Alman.
Right. So when we look,
Alman pulled it away from him.
right. So when we look at that map, right? You have well over 2/3 of that map just in Mossman's book showing the Army and the rocks covered from the Chosin Reservoir all the way up to the Russian border. And then
The
Yeah, Hep C. There was, so you had the Rock 3rd Division and the Capital Division up there. So Walker's 8th Army,
Got that over to the coast.
yeah, Walker's 8th Army, their eastern area of operation line starts at, or ends at Yudam-ni, traveling eastward, and they've got all of the western side of the Taebaek Mountains and the eastern side of the Taebaek Mountains up to November 26th, according to Mossman.
Well, that's the point now. Is like I said, in other words, the Marines always felt that that's what they said out of their element. They felt where the rocks were, that should have been their area.
Yeah.
Along the coast.
Right. But for what it's worth,
And then had Truman not interfered, the rocks would have been over in the Chosin Reservoir.
yeah,
But
but
they were already over there on November 6th. They
Yeah.
had already engaged the Chinese.
yeah, but for what it's worth, their area of operation doesn't get much larger than 25, 30 miles wide compared to everything else that's under Army control. So now we can kind of get a determination about the size of Army forces versus Marine forces. And in support of the Marines being near water, which is what Marines are supposed to be, they actually have the entire Chosin Reservoir.
Yeah.
They're only in,
Others said that would what would better would be for a maritime force near water.
okay. All right, so,
I've got a great thing in that thing with Anita Brown. Anita Brown. I got a thing in there about that. There's 2 chapters on that. Like I told you, it's on rivalry. Inter-service rivalry.
yeah,
There's one thing I got out of the Marine, the Navy book again. The guy was saying, he says that the Army always looks at water as a deep hole, deep wet hole. He said, we look at it as highways.
yeah. That's well said.
That's why I said, that's where the Marines should be, by the reservoir. I mean,
Right.
they had the half tracks and everything to get across the reservoir, up and down it.
Right,
We had the Army always had either those 55-gallon drum pontoon beaches things.
right,
Take those steel sheets and lay them up on floating old water barrels or gas barrels, 55-gallon drums.
right. Now,
Like the Navy said, they had the equipment to just get across this stuff.
right.
There's highways.
So at one point, or at some point, according to Rasula's map that he's got in his book, the area of operation line of the 8th Army is moved westward to just west of Mupyong, all the way down to just west of Tokchan and parallel with Pyongyang. Okay, that's a map in the Rasula book, and it shows a lot of movement, where the 31st was supposed to go, what the Marines were supposed to go, and it shows coming off the Yudam-ni an arrow pointing westward where it appears that the 1st Marines were going to take Mupyong, Kangji, and Manopojin. Now we know under Operation Order 7, regardless of which draft 1, 2, or 3 you use, that Colonel McLean's order on the 25th actually shows that the Army is going to take Mupyong.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I just want to be clear about that.
Like you said, he said that unrestricted, unclassified document, and it was his. So he said he typed that thing up.
So that's the yeah, Rasula's the one that typed it up, right? So
Yeah, so he doesn't know about Yudam-ni,
so that whole storyline pretty much covers in a simple, very simple outline the situation and the motivation for you writing your book. So I want to get back and I want to ask you a few questions from your book, and I haven't got past the first chapter yet, or the second chapter. My first question that came to mind was that when you looked at the overall number of Marine Corps personnel versus Army personnel at the Changjin and Kodo Ri and further north, because you had the 2nd Battalion up there at Kodo, you had the Tank Battalion up there with Drake, you had the 31st and 32nd, the 57th Field Artillery up there at Hudong and further north, and you had the headquarter battalions at Hagaru. You had 10,000 in reserve, Marines in reserve at Hungnam, and only 500 of them were ever flown up to Changjin. They could have been flown in by December 1st, which kind of leads me to the question, why did O.P. Smith order Drysdale to make that drive, even though it was going to be a mess? But, you know, Puller's going to pull for it because he's going to send men in to fight, which is kind of his way. But let's get down to nuts and bolts. How many medals went out to the Marine Corps at the Chosin?
How many medals?
Yeah, how many medals in general? We're just talking about Medal of Honors and Silver and Bronze Stars.
Martin Russ has got it too, because he's got the picture of the guys in the back of the book. There were 14.
14 Medal of Honors
14 Medal of Honor.
in the U.S. Marine Corps. All right, how many medals?
And then they criticized, they even criticized, because what they did, that Silver Star that they supposedly threw in the snow,
Yeah.
they upgraded that a couple of years later to a Medal of Honor. And that's the only one we got.
You're talking about the one given to Colonel Faith.
Yeah, that was an upgrade from the Silver Star later, a few years later.
That's when Alexander Haig and General Ned Altman took that helicopter into the Chosin perimeter on the east side.
Yeah, and then they gave him that Silver Star, you know.
Okay.
And because that guy asked him, said, "What did he say to you?" He says, "Enemies fleeing north."
Right. Well, this has always been an area of compunction for me with regards to the whole Chosin campaign. And I'm looking at the number of Marines that Thomas Rick's video says that O.P. Smith saved 18,000. So let's run some numbers. The first Marines under Puller is at Kodo Ri. Part of those guys are at Hagaru. Murray's 5th, all right, he actually got command of that command because his commander was sent stateside the day before for family issues regarding this guy's father, right? So Murray gets elevated to be commander of RCT 5, Marine 5. And all told, by the time he gets all the way over to Yudam-ni on the 27th, we're looking at approximately 8,800 Marines at Yudam-ni. Is that correct? Okay, and so back at Hagaru, we're probably talking maybe a total of 2,500, which is equal to the number of people on the east side of the Chosin. There's about 2,500 or more at Hagaru. Is that number low or high or right about on? What would you count the head count at Hagaru?
Pretty well, yeah, because they keep saying that we had almost as many men at Hagaru as, east of Chosin as Smith had at Hagaru.
So if you add the rocks into it, we're talking about maybe 3,500? If you add the rocks into the equation at Hagaru, are we talking about anywhere between 25 and 3,500?
Oh, I don't think the rocks, no, I don't think there were that many rocks, because unless they were like the one with us, but you don't hear many of them at Hagaru.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear. I didn't think so either, but I wanted to make sure we had the numbers right. So
I know, I've got that listing in there in the book of how many he had at Yudam-ni. And he says no rocks. There was no rocks.
Yeah. Hang on just for a minute. I want to take care of a sound issue. Can you hang on?
Okay.
All right, I'm back. All right. So just proportionally, it's 16 to 1 on Medal of Honors, but the disproportionate size of force is 8,800 at Yudam-ni and 2,500 at east side of Chosin. So we're talking roughly twice the size if you add the rocks into the equation. The Yudam-ni perimeter is about twice the size from Fox Hill all the way up to Yudam-ni. Of those 8,800, they got 16 Medal of Honors, and we only got one for the Army, which was 1/3 the size. And one would think you would see somewhere between 2 to 5 Medal of Honor recipients on the Army side of the equation. Now,
Yeah, I got a card back. I think it's back there more or less around when you get there. It's about around, I think it's like in chapter 21.
okay,
I got in there what they, how many Medal of Honors they got at Incheon, how many were recommended, and then a lot of them were denied.
yeah,
You know, there, so I imagine what but they went haywire up there with Chosin.
okay. So you're
They were giving them out like crazy.
all right. Well, let's,
Like I said, there's 3 of them, and the way they had their certificate, like that one with for Murray, for Davis, you know, it said it didn't say you rescued Fox Company, you rescued the Leader Rifle Company.
okay. Well, that's
They could have just it was Fox Company because they already had a lot of notoriety. But
Well-
like I said, they had 2 others. Because Barber had got one, the captain, and then that one of Mexican guy, I think, Gonzalez or somebody, he got one because he picked up a grenade and threw it away.
did
It exploded.
did Lee get one? He was traveling with Davis to go to Fox Hill. Did Lee get one?
That
Chinese guy.
Korean guy?
Well, he was Chinese actually, and he fought. He was a Marine that fought in World War II.
No.
Okay. All right. So
I think I even got in there out of the ones the Marines got. I think the majority of them were officers.
yeah, that's pretty perfect. Except for yeah. Okay. Well, let's fast forward all the way forward to Colonel Fake being buried. All right. I'll give you a minute to wrap your head around that a bit. You get an opportunity to speak with Julia Precious and Colonel George Rasula. Okay? And what was it?
When I was sitting in the back of the chapel there, you know, and he said, hey, here's Rasula. And I said, yeah, it looks like Julia's with him, so I went up and talked to her. And I asked her about that Time magazine thing, about that chaplain.
Yeah?
I said, did that help you any at all? She said, oh, yeah. She said, you really got to line me up with that.
Yeah.
That's that thing where I told you Time magazine was going to reproduce that.
Yeah?
And I said, the only thing is you have to be a subscriber to Time magazine. And I said, I'm not a subscriber at this time. And by the time I probably get on there, it says it takes like 4 weeks to get your delivery. I said, they may pull it. So I told her, you know, so apparently she got it because they said originally it was in a magazine called Fortnite.
Okay.
She got it. And then I had it, and I lost it on all this other stuff. I had the actual copy of it. You know, but
So basically,
I don't know who I sent it to.
so basically though, Time Magazine did Time Magazine did a reprint of it, and that really was just one of the many things that put the Army in a bad light at the Chosin Reservoir. And they restated it, which kind of continues on with the myth about the failures of the Army at the Chosin Reservoir. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, just like I said, that guy was a chaplain. You know, I mean, you don't do that to men, you know.
Well, there's more to the story.
The Marines were already saying that. They said, oh, they left their wounded and their dead. And I said, good gosh.
Well,
And just like I said before I got this book, that well, we're still 200 and something, almost 230 people more on our side than their total from what was it, October 25th, when they started counting their casualties.
yeah. So let's.
They're crazy way of saying that, like died of wounds, you know, or so how do you know that? And then non-fatal wounds, they had that non-battle casualties, and I don't know how they kept that chart.
Okay.
Then they said, it's important because then they said about how they had to fill in for Luxembourg getting rid of his records.
Yeah. We'll get.
So those days, and they had to send around, how many people died here or wounded here?
Well, we'll get into that. We'll get into that as we continue on with these interviews. Real quick though, and I'm going to stop here and change my film out. When you're talking to Colonel George Wasula,